제가 들고 있는 이 시나리오 또한 AI와 함께 썼고요. 그리고 지금 배경으로 잔잔하게 흐르고 있는 음악 역시 이번 대담에 맞춰서 AI가 만든 음악입니다. 이처럼 AI는 우리와 함께 이미 생활을 하게 됐고, 그리고 미래에는 아마 더 밀착돼서 살아가게 되겠죠. 키워드 보여주십시오. 1부의 키워드는 노동시장, 산업, 휴머노이드, 과세, 일자리 감소입니다.
제가 먼저 우리 교수님은 사실 저번 이 대선 때 한 3년쯤 됐나요? 영상으로 대화를 한번 한 일이 있는데 이렇게 직접 뵙고 보니까 참 영광입니다.
Thank you.
사실 교수님이 가지고 계신 이 AI에 대한 저는 약간의 이제 우려를 많이 하시는 느낌이었는데 저도 사실은 이게 두 가지 가능성이 동시에 있다고 생각해요. 예를 들면 인간 삶의 유용한 기술로 자리 잡을 가능성, 또 하나는 인간에게 근본적 위협을 가할 가능성, 이 두 가지가 동시에 있다고 봅니다. 그중에 저는 이제 정치를 하는 사람이니까 현실 문제에 관심이 좀 높아서 이 역사를 보면 기술 발전의 역사이기도 하고 노동 생산성이 향상되어 온 역사이기도 하고 또 한편으로 보면 인간의 노동 시간이 단축된 역사이기도 한 것 같습니다. 그래서 이게 노동 생산성, 산업 생산성 극도로 높일 텐데, 올릴 텐데, 그게 한편으로 보면 결국 인간의 생산에 대한 기여라고 하는 것을 줄인다는 의미이기도 해서 일반적으로 보면 일자리가 대폭 줄어들지 않겠느냐. 인간의 역할이 대폭 줄어들어서 결국은 대체적으로 많은 사람들이 일자리를 잃지 않을까? 과거에 예를 들면 산업 발전 단계에서는 기술 발전만큼 새로운 일자리가 생겼는데 이번에는 예외가 되지 않을까 하는 우려들이 많이 있습니다. 이 교수님은 이 점에 대해서 어떻게 보고 계세요?
We don't know for sure. There will be jobs in the future, but we don't know which jobs. It's the first time in history that we really have no idea how the job market would look in 10 years, which means that we don't know what to teach young people. Some people say, this is the computer age. Teach them how to code. But AI learns how to code. Maybe in 10 years, you don't need human coders because AI codes better than humans. So this is a big difficulty. Now, in history, the problem with revolutionary technology is often not the destination, the final outcome of the revolution. The problem is the way there. If you look at the technology of the Industrial Revolution, steam engines, electricity, the internal combustion engine, in the end, you can say that industrial societies were better than agrarian societies that came before. That we now have a lot more prosperity. Even the common workers usually have a better life than 200 years ago. So the destination in the end was good. But the way there was the problem. Because when industrial technology first emerged, people didn't know how to build industrial societies. There were huge mistakes made, and there was huge inequality between those who adopted the technology first and those that came later. And we saw, for instance, that in the 19th century, the few countries that industrialized first, they conquered and exploited the whole world for a century or more. This can happen again with AI. AI can create big inequalities within society and also even bigger inequalities between different countries if just a few countries, most clearly the USA and China, monopolize the AI, and there will be a lot of wealth and a lot of jobs in California or in Shenzhen, but very few jobs anywhere else. So the question is not just what will be the final destination of the AI revolution. The question is, how do we make sure that the road there is a good road and is beneficial to everybody, not just to a few people in a few countries.
교수님 말씀 잘 들었습니다. 실제로 많은 사람들의 우려가 결국 불평등에 귀착될 것이다. 지금도 전 세계적인 이 불안, 극단주의 이런 것들의 주 원인이 이 경제적 불평등, 양극화에 있다는 주장이 많습니다. 저도 사실 거기에 많이 공감을 가지고 있어요. 이제 어떻게 극복할 거냐? 저는 일단은 이게 일자리를 나누는 노동 시간을 개개인의 노동 시간을 단축하는 방향으로 가는 것이 일단 하나의 방법이라고 생각이 되고, 또 한 가지는 결국은 엄청난 자본을 투자하는 이 거대 기업, 정말로 기술 개발 능력이 있는 소수의 뭐라 그럴까, 뭐 선택된 사람들, 이 사람들만이 엄청난 부를 누리게 될 가능성이 높지 않습니까? 그러면 이걸 제지할 수도 없고, 그렇다고 여기에다 세금으로 하는 건 저항이 심할 수 있고, 그렇다고 거기서 엄청난 일자리가 생기는 것도 아니고, 결국 저는 또 하나의 방법으로 이 생각을 해봤어요. 산업 발전에 지금은 되게 지원을 했는데 공공 부분에서 투자를 해서 그 수익의 이익을 상당 부분을 나눌 필요가 있지 않냐, 좀 쉐어할 필요가 있겠다. 그래서 얼마 전에 제가 예를 들면 알 수 없는 영역에 인공지능 관련 산업 또는 기업의 대규모 투자를 국민의 국부펀드로, 국민의 자본으로, 국가 자본으로 투자를 해서 그 지분을 상당 부분 확보하는 게 어떨까. 세금을 걷는 것도 하나의 방법이지만 아예 사업 자체에 공공이 참여하는 건 어떨까, 이런 생각을 해봤습니다. 이건 어떻게 생각하십니까? 제가 그 얘기했다가 공산주의자라고 비난을 많이 받았어요.
I'm not an economist, so I can't offer an expert opinion on such economic matters. What I can say is that very often in these situations in history, you have to overcome resistance from the big corporations and the big companies that they tell you, you cannot do it except the way we want to do it. And again, if you look at, say, the 19th century, so during the Industrial Revolution, the big companies, they used child labor. They sent children aged 8, 10, 12 to work in factories, in coal mines, something I think that you personally have also experienced. And when you tell the companies, this is not a good idea, it's better to send the children to school, the companies say, no, this doesn't make economic sense. If we spend so much money on sending children to school, whereas our competitors don't, in other countries or in other companies, they send them to work at age 8, we will be left behind in the economic race. And this was a very strong argument. But in the end, people realized that actually sending the kids to school at age 10, it's not only the ethical thing to do, it's also make good economic sense. That it's much more, the country will be much more rich in the end if you send 10-year-old kids to school to get a good education than if you send them to the factory to work. So this required government action to tell the companies, you can't employ children, and this required a lot of government investment because somebody need to build this huge educational system. But in the end, it also made very good economic sense. And we are now in an analogous, in a similar situation. Of course, it's very different this time. We can't just repeat the same formula that worked 50 years ago or 100 years ago. But the principle that we need government to step in is important because, as I said, nobody knows what the job market would look like in 10 years. What we do know is that it will be very volatile, fluid. It will keep changing. Like the AI revolution is not a one-time event. It's not like we now have the big AI revolution. We'll have a few years, very rough years, until finally there is a new equilibrium and everything settles down. No, AI is nowhere near its full potential. This revolution is just beginning. So we will see very big changes in the labor market, in the job market, in the next 5 years, even bigger changes in 15 years, even bigger changes in 30 years. As AI becomes more and more intelligent and replaces humans in more and more tasks. So people will need to constantly retrain and reinvent themselves and change jobs. And the big question is, or two questions. First of all, who is going to finance all this retraining? And who is going to support people while they are in transition? Like, I lost my old job to an AI. There is a new job, but I need like 6 months or 1 year to retrain. Who is going to support me in the meantime? And it's not just financial support. Even more important is psychological support, because it's going to be a very stressful world. You know, change is stressful. And having to change again and again throughout your life, you cannot rely on just, okay, now I know, now I have the knowledge that will keep me throughout my life, now I have the profession, the job, I will do this until I'm old. This is gone. You have to change again and again. It's very stressful. So I think we'll also need much more investment in mental health. We already saw it also with COVID, that it's very important to remember the mental aspects of such big crisis. That it's easy for people to focus on just the material conditions, but taking care of people's mental health is equally important. So I think in the coming years, governments will need to step in to provide both a kind of new education system for adults, so they can keep learning and changing throughout their lives, and also a much more robust mental health system to support people in very stressful times.
아까 말씀 중에 그 영국의 산업혁명 초기에 8살, 10살짜리 아이들을 밤새 일을 시켜가지고 다 결혼도 하기 전에 다 죽어가는 바람에 결국 어느 시점이 되니까 노동자들이 재공급이 안 돼가지고 자본가들끼리 협약을 맺었다는 거 아닙니까? 우리 10살 미만은 쓰지 말자. 밤 10시 이후에는 여성은 집으로 돌려보내주자. 이게 이제 노동법이라고 하는 법률의 그 제정 출발이었죠. 근데 지금 인공지능이 지배하는 사회에도 사실은 생산성이 엄청나게 올라갈 텐데 결국 이 생산의 결과물을 특정 소수 또는 소수의 기업들이 독점할 가능성이 매우 높죠. 안 그래도 지금 전 세계가 이 부의 양극화, 불평등 격차 때문에 성장률도 떨어지고 성장률이 떨어지니까 갈등이 격화되고 이게 이제 국제적인 충돌의 원인이 돼 가고 있기도 한데 아마 이스라엘이 가자 지구를 침공한 것도 비슷하지 않을까 싶어요. 근데 앞으로도 이 경향이 더 심화될 텐데 이 문제, 예를 들면 이걸 피할 수는 없고 기술은 발전할 거고 인공지능이 산업 현장의 주된 생산 수단으로 자리 잡을 텐데 이 엄청난 쏠림 현상, 그러니까 한쪽으로 몰리는 이 현상을 어떻게 극복할 수 있죠? 어떻게 대책을 세워야 될지 혹시 생각해 보셨나요?
오.
문제가 있다는 건 알겠는데 그 문제를 어떻게 피해갈 수 있을까?
The one key word is trust.
네.
We need to build more trust between people in order to keep AI under our control. Unfortunately, some of the most important leaders in the world are doing exactly the opposite. They are destroying the trust between countries. They are destroying trust in international laws. They are destroying trust in agreements. They think that force alone can be trusted. And they imagine a world in which each nation is like a fortress with very high walls, both against immigrants, against foreign ideas, against foreign goods, tariffs. And, you know, in a world which is just a collection of fortresses, The question is, how do you settle the differences, the disagreements between the fortresses, if you don't have any common values, any common rules? Each fortress will naturally want a bit more territory, a bit more security and prosperity for itself at the expense of the neighbors.
충돌하기.
And then we have thousands of years of history, and we know how it ends. It ends in war. The only thing that can prevent it is not building walls, but building trust between different countries and also between different companies. But the opposite is happening. And this is especially dangerous in the age of AI. You know, I've been traveling the world since I published Nexus, talking with politicians, talking with business people about the AI revolution. I was a few days ago in Tokyo. Tomorrow I'm flying to Beijing. And wherever I go, I ask the leaders of the AI revolution 2 questions. First, I ask, why are you moving so fast? There are big risks, and we need time to adapt the labor markets, to adapt our laws, to think about the ethical implications. We need time. Why are you moving so fast? And almost all of them have the same answer. We know that there are risks. We would actually like to slow down, to invest more in safety, but we cannot trust our human competitors. If we slow down and the other company or the other country doesn't slow down, they will win the AI race and they will rule the world, because whoever dominates AI dominates the world. So this is why we can't slow down, because we cannot trust the other humans. Then I ask them the second question. Do you think you will be able to trust the super intelligent AIs that you're developing? And the same people who just told me they can't trust the other humans suddenly tell me, yes, we can trust the AIs. And this is almost insane. We have thousands of years of experience with other humans. We know that it's not easy to build trust with them, but we understand human biology and psychology. We have quite good mechanisms. 100,000 years ago, humans lived in tiny hunter-gatherer bands, and they couldn't trust anybody outside their band. Now we have nations like Korea with millions of citizens who trust each other. We have a global trade network that, the food we eat, the clothes we wear are often produced by people on the other side of the planet. So we have managed to build trust between humans. With AI, in contrast, we have no experience. We know one thing about AI. AI is not a tool, it is an agent. It's the first technology we've created that can make decisions by itself. It can invent new ideas by itself. And we already know that it can lie, it can deceive people, it can adopt goals that we did not predict. So there is very little reason to trust a super intelligent AI. And yet, again, this paradox, the people who cannot trust other people, for some reason think they could trust the AIs.
그러네요. 타민족들도 이제 문화적으로 접촉하고 이해하면서 우리 하나의 공동체 안으로 포섭됐는데 인공지능은 그럴 가능성이 매우 적다고 보시는 겁니까? 충분히 통제할 가능성이 많지 않다? 이렇게 보시는 건가요?
It depends on how we build it and how we integrate it into society. I don't think it's evil. I think AI could be the best invention in human history. If we build it and use it correctly, it can provide us with the best healthcare system in history. We can have AI doctors and AI therapists who will give us the best healthcare in history. We can have AI teachers in the education system. We can, just one example, every year more than 1 million people die in car accidents. most car accidents are the result of human error, like somebody drinking alcohol and driving. AI doesn't drink alcohol. If we give AIs control of the vehicles, self-driving vehicles, we could save 1 million people every year. So I'm not against the development of AI. I'm just saying it needs to be done in a responsible way, and we especially need to think about how we integrate it into society. Because, again, when you develop AI in a laboratory, you can only test certain things. You can test certain potential accidents. But you cannot simulate history in a laboratory. And by that I mean you have no idea, even if you made all the tests you want in a laboratory, you have no idea what will happen when you release millions of AI agents that can make independent decisions and invent all kinds of new ideas, and you release them to the world, to the economic system, to the military system, and they start interacting with millions of people. You know, one of the key moments in the AI revolution happened right here in Seoul in 2016, the famous Go game between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol. And what was shocking about the victory of AlphaGo, it wasn't just that an AI, a machine, defeated human world champion. It was the way it defeated him. It invented strategies, moves that were really alien, that were so creative, so unexpected. You know, humans have been playing Go for thousands of years. Tens of millions of humans played Go. We thought we explored all the different ways to play Go, and then AlphaGo came, and within a few days, discovered brilliant new strategies that never occurred to humans in 2,000 years. Now, in games, people can say, well, it doesn't matter so much. But the same thing can happen in finance. We are increasingly giving control to AIs over the financial system. To decide, you apply to a bank to get a loan, chances are that it's an AI now deciding whether to give you a loan. Investments are more and more transactions in the stock exchange are actually done by AI. AIs might soon invent completely new financial devices. And you know that the current US administration is allergic to regulation, so it deregulates the financial system. We saw what happened last time in 2007, 2008, when the financial system was deregulated, that people invented these very complex financial devices that the regulators did not understand. For a few years, everything looked wonderful. Some people made billions, and then everything crashed. What happens now if AIs invent new financial devices that are beyond human understanding, like these tricks in Go that are beyond human imagination? So in finance also, they can find new ways, new devices, new financial devices. For a few years, everything looks wonderful, and then there is a huge financial crash, and not a single human being on Earth can understand what is happening because the financial system has become too complex for the human brain. So even if you still have a human prime minister or a human president, they'll come to the president and say, there is a financial crisis, but nobody knows why or what to do about it. The AI has some recommendations to do this, to do that, but we don't understand why. Do we really want to be in a situation when governments no longer understand finance and the AIs control the financial system?
제가 갑자기 당황했어요. 저는 그냥 AI가 요즘도 제가 질문을 하면 약간 엉뚱한 대답을 해서 내가 아는 거하고 다른 대답을 해서 물어보면 미안하다 그런 경우가 있어요. 챗GPT에다 물어보면. 저는 그런 정도의 실수 정도로 생각했는데 지금 말씀을 들어보니까 엄청난 규모의 심각한 인간이 이해 못하는 사고가 날 수도 있군요. 그러면 결국은 어떻게 대응하죠?
we need to prepare in advance. I mean, first of all, it's not a good idea to give unpredictable AIs too much control of things like the financial system or the military or our, the news industry. We now see all over the world that there is a crisis in democracy. And people wonder, why is it happening all over the world at the same time? In every country, in Korea, in Israel, in Turkey, in US, people have the special explanations for their country. But you see it happening all over the world. And what is common to all these countries is that their information system has changed in recent years. Democracy is built on top of information technology because democracy is a conversation. Dictatorship is one person dictates everything. Democracy is lots of people having a conversation. Now, to have a conversation, you need means of communication. Large-scale democracy became possible in history only after the invention of mass media. In the ancient world, there were no large-scale democracies. You had small city-states that were democratic, like Athens, but we don't have a single example of a big country managed democratically. Democracies appeared only when you had newspapers and radio and television and then the internet, which allowed millions of people to have a conversation about foreign policy, economic policy, even though they are spread over a very large territory. So democracy is built on top of information technology, and any big change in information technology creates an earthquake in democracy. And what happened over the last 10 or 20 years is that we gave control of the conversation to algorithms, to non-human intelligence. In the 20th century, some of the most important people in every country were the news editors, the people who decide what will be on the news in the evening or what will appear on the front page of the newspaper in the morning, and everybody reads it, and this is what they think about, this is what they talk about, this shapes the conversation. Now you ask, who are the most important editors today? What are their names? They have no names.
Algorithm.
Because they are algorithms. Like, you still have these legacy media, newspapers, television, but social media is now king. And who is the editor of social media? Algorithms. And the algorithms were given one goal by the social media companies. Not the goal of finding the truth, not the goal of creating a healthy conversation, but the goal of increasing user engagement, which means make people spend more time on the platform because this is how the company makes money. And the algorithms experimented on millions of people and discovered that the easiest way to keep people on the platform, to grab their attention, is to press the hate button or the fear button or the anger button in their minds. If you show them something that makes them very angry or very fearful, they can't look away, and they send it to all their friends also. So in pursuit of this seemingly benign goal, user engagement, the algorithms deliberately spread hatred and anger and fear. And we now find ourselves in this situation that we have the most sophisticated information technology in history, and people are losing the ability to talk with one another, to have a reasonable conversation, because we gave too much power to the AIs, to the algorithms that now control the conversation. And one thing that I think governments should do is restrict the power of these algorithms, for instance, by forbidding fake people, counterfeit people. For thousands of years, we had laws against fake money. You cannot produce fake money. You do that, you go to jail. Now, you can produce fake people. Like, you go online and you read some story, or even you talk with somebody, you think it's a human being, but actually it's a bot. And this should not be allowed. AIs are welcome to talk with us, like maybe we have an AI doctor that we consult with, but it must identify itself as an AI. And some people say, but this is again freedom of speech. These regulations, the information should be completely free. But freedom of speech only protects human beings. It's a human right. Bots don't have human rights. Bots are not protected by freedom of speech.
그 가짜 인간 중에 저는 계엄령 선포하는 윤석열 대통령이 가짜인 줄 알았습니다. 하여튼 뭐 여러 영역에서 이 알고리즘이 가지고 있는 맹점, 그러니까 사람을 한쪽으로 편향되게 몰아가는 거. 인간은 정말 다양해야 되는데.
They can, yeah.
많은 것들을 봐야 하고, 많은 경험을 가져야 되고, 생각도 비판적으로 생각도 좀 하고, A의 생각을 했다 그 반대의 생각도 좀 할 수 있는 이런 유연함이 있어야 되는데, 이 알고리즘이 사람을 한쪽으로 몰아서 한쪽 사고만 하게 하는 그런 심각한 문제가 있는 것 같긴 합니다. 근데 그거를 예를 들면 윤리적으로 또는 규범적으로 통제되지 않고 있다는 거죠. 돈을 벌기 위해서, 많은 사람을 모으기 위해서 한쪽으로 몰아가는데 이걸 지금 현재는 통제할 방법이 없다 그 말씀인 거죠. 열심히 통제할 방법을 찾아야 되겠군요.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'm not against using the AIs and the algorithms. If you look at the communication system we have today, the internet, the social media, it cannot function without the algorithms. But we just need proper regulations. So again, the most basic one is that algorithms cannot pretend to be human, which I think nobody should object to that. Because it doesn't harm the freedom of speech of human beings. It only limits the freedom of speech of bots and algorithms. And they shouldn't be treated as if they're humans with rights. And I think the other key thing is that companies should be liable, should be responsible for the actions of their algorithms. Not for the actions of their users, but for the actions of their algorithms. You know, if a car company produces a defective vehicle and there is an accident and somebody is killed, we hold the car company responsible. Why should it be any different with companies that produce algorithms and AIs? They should also be responsible. So for instance, if an algorithm deliberately spreads hatred and lies, again, don't punish the users, but the company that produced the algorithm, it should be responsible if its algorithm deliberately spreads fake news and conspiracy theories and so forth.
오늘 말씀을 들어보니까 이 정치인으로서 유용한 조언이 많은 것 같습니다. 그런데 이런 점은 또 있는 것 같습니다. 그러니까 이게 새로 시작하는 영역인데 과도한 규제가 기술 개발이나 발전을 가로막는다 라는 일반적 지적이 좀 많은 편입니다. 그러니까 이 새로운 기술이 가지는 위험성, 잠재적 위험성이죠. 지금 뭐 그렇게 현실화되지는 않지만 이 인공지능이 가지게 될 앞으로 낳게 될 심각한 문제, 예측되는 문제들을 지금 말씀을 주로 하시는 거잖아요. 근데 이제 현실 세계에서는 아직 그렇게 된 것도 아닌데 왜 그 가능성을 보고 기술 개발이나 발전을 가로막느냐, 또는 그 예를 들면 이걸 사업 아이템으로 만드는 것을 왜 막느냐, 이런 지적들이 상당히 많은 것 같습니다. 특히 이제 AI에 대한 윤리 규범 제정이라든지 뭐 사전적 통제 이런 거에 대한 반발은 상당히 많은 편이에요. 신기술 영역, 특히 AI나 이런 영역에 대해서는 이제 국제적 경쟁이 워낙 치열하다 보니까 아까 말씀하신 것처럼 우리가 밀리지 않을까라는 그 다급함, 혹시 소외되지 않을까 하는 두려움, 이런 것 때문에 우리라도 좀 빨리 가자, 이런 경향이 좀 많은 것 같긴 합니다.
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree we shouldn't have too many regulations. You know, if you have a country that regulates everything and it has perfect regulation, but nobody produces any technology in that country, so it's not helpful. So, but the idea that regulation is always bad for business, this is simply wrong. Like we already mentioned some examples, like regulation that you cannot use 10-year-old children in your factory. This is a very severe regulation. It limits what companies can do, yet we think it's actually good for the economy to have this regulation. Similarly, if we think about the social media companies, so it's not a good thing if democracy collapses. It's also bad for business to have a dictatorship. So if we have regulations that protect democracy, this is not bad for business. You know, you just look what happened in Turkey in the last few days. President Erdogan, who once said that democracy is like a train. You take it until you reach your station, then you go down. You use democracy to gain power, and once you have power, you use it to destroy democracy. So he has now done it, and he's arrested the opposition leaders. What happened immediately is that the stock exchange and the value of the Turkish lira collapsed. So having regulations that protect democracy is not bad for business. And like this, and AI itself can actually be something very good for democracy. Like we saw in Taiwan, that maybe you have met Audrey Tang, who was the digital minister of Taiwan, and she had several initiatives of digital democracy, of how to use AI and algorithms in order actually to foster a better conversation and a stronger democracy. So again, I'm not trying to depict everything like in dark colors, that every technological invention is dangerous and we need to stop it. We need just to be wise about it and to encourage it to develop in a positive direction.